Alright, so this is the new interface for Fedora 17, and it's centered around the idea of tablets and cell phones. That's really what it's set up for, and that's why the new interface, that's why it's different. I don't like it as much, but it's for compatibility with these tablet devices, and tablet devices become extremely popular. So popular that this is where a lot of the money is actually being made now on little computers, believe it or not. If I click on activities, this is something that can be touched with your finger, you see, as far as that goes. And then you got your little hot buttons along the side here, and you just finger touch them. You could also come in here, and if you know what you're looking for, you can type it in. For instance, like a terminal. Does that make sense? Alright, and then you just click it like so, and it launches the terminal. So that's how that works. Also, if you're like, I don't know what it's called. Well, thankfully they got this little applications one right here. And you can click it, and it lists all the applications by categories. Just like we had before with the little menus here at the top or whatnot. Now they have it like this. And then you can go in here to like, I don't know, something like system tools. Here's all your system tools. Add remove software. Remember the other one? Literally called other. We had it underneath the menu that was on the top left. Here it is. It's basically the same thing when you click on applications. So it's not a big change. It's just a matter of learning, hey, this is where this is, and blah, blah, blah. Like, for instance, here's your screensaver, or your services, or your users and groups, and so on and so forth. Is this making sense to everybody? Okay, so the interface is a little different. Also, you may notice something that's also different. When I go back over to Windows, over here in the corner is the desktops. Now, if I start using these desktops up, it starts adding desktops as I need them. No kidding. So it's pretty cool. It'll just dynamically start adding these desktops. If I want to switch desktops, I just click on them over here on the right hand side. So with that, and then if there's a desktop I want or a window I want here, I just click it and it comes back up. So hopefully that makes sense. There's a couple things. Sounds like people next door are dying. Alright, so if I come in here and I CD into something like downloads, is that big enough for everyone to read? Yeah, okay. Let me kill the wood wrap around. Is that even better? You can open up the back of the blinds there if you like. Alright, so essentially, basically what I need to do here is I'm going to show you how to do some zips with bzip, because I go over how to, and I'll show you how to gzip and then gunzip a package. So that's useful, and it'll help you understand how the tar stuff works for tar. Now here we have the scripts here, .tar.gz, but if I wanted to unzip that, I would literally type in tar zxvf and then scripts .tar. I can just hit tab to finish it out, so I don't have to type it all out. And then it would unzip, and there would be the scripts folder. See that? Now, there's a way in order to zip up a package too. There's that. And one of the ways to do this, let me just go into, let's see if there's anything in documents. I don't know. I'll tell you what. ls-r recursive. Okay, we found a few things. Alright. Needless to say. The -r there made it recursive lookup. So, well, a little too much, I'm afraid, really. Documents. I need to, sorry. I meant to ls that. Okay, so we got something to work with in documents. That's good. Alright, so there's an HTML page in there that I can play with. And if I gzip this up, not zup, but zip index.html. And if I do this, it'll end up being zipped up, like so. You see that? Alright, and then if I want to unzip this, I can say gunzip, like this, and then I would type in index.html.gz. ls, now it's unzipped. So the cool thing about this is that this lets you compress and decompress files like you would normally with a zip program, only these are more tightly compressed. The tar is like a archive format where you store a whole bunch of files into it. Think of it almost like a folder, but it's not. It's like a file. So, and then the zipping here, gzip or bz2, is the actual compression that will actually compress down the file and make it smaller. So there's another one that's called bzip2, and it does more compression. It's typically not as popular as gzip because gzip's just been around forever, so a lot of people know it. Bzip2 is just not used as much, but it does work. There it is, bzip2. Then if I want to unzip it, it's bunzip2 space index.html.bz2. ls, and that's unzipped. Make sense? Alright. So you'll get another more of a bigger introduction to this when you're doing the whole other part of the tutorial where you actually full screen this view here. Another thing to look at, so let's go over some of the main configuration files in Linux instead of etc. So let me cd into etc here, and let's look at some of these files. Alright, so let's look at passwd for instance. I'm just going to cat it real quick. Alright. And that's the file. Actually, let me try to do a gedit real quick. Of course, I don't have it ready to go. They never do. So let me just type in gedit. And I'll see if it'll let me open up this text editor. I should have put it on another desktop just to make life easy, but I didn't. Alright. So if I type in P, yeah, and I'm just looking for passwd here. Right here it is. And you'd think this is going to store your passwords, but it doesn't. It actually stores your username accounts. So your user accounts are stored in the passwd file, which will kind of throw you because you're not expecting that. But here's root. This is the network administrator right here. The X is where the password goes. It's actually stored in the shadow file. And the shadow file actually is the passwords file. And this gets substituted in where the X is for the actual password. And the password is stored encrypted. I'll show it to you in a bit. But it's stored encrypted. And so you can't read it like you would think. Here we have our user ID, your group ID. Here's your name of your group. Here's your home directory. And then this is the shell script that you're using for that user. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that's what's going on. You notice that there's other processes on here that are actually users on the system. That's why we can't use user ID below 500 because they are actually reserved for these different processes on the Linux system that actually make up the system. So for instance, halting the system has its own user, and it has an ID of 7. Shutdown is its own user, and its ID is 6. Sync is 1. LP for accessing the printer has a user of 4, but a group of 7. So it's actually tied in with halt. So on and so forth. I mean, you just got all these different ones here. FTP. Nobody is a person that's not logged onto the system. USB MUXD. So things like this. There's tons of them. on here, SSHD, etc., etc., etc. Here's student. So for the student account, you notice that it is student is name student, colon here for the X, and that basically separates the fields by a colon, which is also referred to as a delimiter when you're separating components of a file. Later on, we'll get into actually how to cut these this information out, how to parse it, how we can do stuff with it, how to use tail and things of this nature, and actually how to modify a stream of data and control it and get totally different output, and then redirect that and do something with it. So there's some crazy stuff you can do with that. We're not going to get into that right now, but there is a way to do that, and we'll look at that. All right. So basically, the X is where the password is, and then 1000 for the user ID, 1000 for the group ID. Again, the group is student. Their home directory is /home/student, and their shell is going to be /bin/bash. And again, same thing for www-data, etc. Does not have a home directory, so, or shouldn't anyways. I told it not to, but anyhow, didn't have a group. Wasn't supposed to have a home directory. Told it not to make one. Guess it made one anyways. But anyways, there's that user. I could delete the home directory if I wanted to from here. Of course, I'd have to be root privileged and then save it, and then it would no longer have a home directory. So on and so forth. But that brings up a point, though, about the shadow. I'm not going to save, nor could I. I'm not root. So, I mean, it wouldn't matter if I wanted to save. I wouldn't be able to do it. So, even if a user is able to read a file, unless they are privileged, they can't actually read it or edit it. I may not be able to reshadow. Just an FYI. Figured as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to access that by being a root privileged user. Now, I could go in here and do it in this one, but I'm not going to. First, I'm going to become root, and just to read this for you guys easily, I'm going to step in here and become root, and then execute gedit from the prompt here. And since I'm root at this prompt, the graphical program that launches will actually be root privileged. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's pretty useful. Let me show you what happens with that. So if I say /usr/bin/gedit, because it's a user program, so it's going to be in the user folder. Bin's going to mean it's a binary, it's an executable, and gedit is the program I want to run. And if I put an ampersand after it, I can actually continue on using this terminal even after this program is launched. Otherwise, it's in the foreground, and therefore I can't do anything else in this terminal while that program is running. But if I put an ampersand here, it'll move the program into the background, so I can still do stuff in the terminal after this program is launched. So I'm going to launch this program here from the command line. It's refusing to let me do it. That's fine, because it probably doesn't want me to be root in running that. Alright, fine. It used to let me do that, but it looks like there's some security to block it from happening now. We can also use VIM to edit it. So if I say shadow like this with VIM, we can see it by command line here, and it'll highlight it up and all this stuff. So basically, right here's your username, and this big huge long string of text right here, that is the encrypted root password. Remember, the password was password. So it converted the password into that big long string of text. But only the root user can access this file, can read it, etc. So even if someone breaks into the system, they can't even copy the daggone file because they have read privileges. You have to be root to get the read privileges in order to actually read the passwords. If someone does manage to break in at root level to steal the passwords, you still get it in encrypted form. Although at that point they have root privileges, so I don't know why they would care, type thing, because they can do anything they want on the system. They can change anyone's password, etc. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of pointless to worry about that at that point. They're already in the worst possible position. And I can't remember what these numbers do after it. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you can see some of these other users. They have stars next to them if they don't have a password for them, like Ben and Damon, etc. They wouldn't have a password. There's no point. Exclamation mark, I don't remember what that's for. Or here's an actual user again. So here's another password. And check out his password. So you may notice this the same identical encrypted string over and over again here, because I kept typing in password for the password. Now normally you would not use password for your password, because that's about the dumbest password you could use. But again, for class, we're using it just to make life simple. Okay, so that's the shadow password file. And I just did escape, colon, then the Q sign, and then exclamation mark to quit, VIM. Alright, so that covers shadow. Cups configuration file is used for doing printers. Alright, so let me cd into cups, like so. And then I can VIM cups. Let's see here, .d.conf. Alright, and cups is a printer file system. And there's certain things like log level and things of that nature that are just standard across all these different configuration files. So once you get used to certain things on some of these configuration files, you'll notice it over and over again for it. But log level is warn. It's set to warn. It could be set to error. It could be set to debug. It could be set to fail or whatever. It's different things of that nature. There's also system group here, system root. Listen here, what to listen on. In this case, they're listening on localhost and on port 631. And then listen to var/run/cups/cups.sock for the socket, which is aka the port from that standpoint. Browsing on, allow and deny. Here, browse all, cups. Basically, when you have access to printers, more or less. Authorization type, basic web interface. Yes, do we allow for a web interface? We are. Order allow, deny for location. Admin, allow, deny. The authorization type is just default here right now. See, but you can come in and you can change this configuration file. Deny, allow. So there's a lot of different stuff in here. As far as that. And it has information that tells you about what this setup is. You may notice they use like a tag type system for defining different blocks, and this is typical of a lot of the configuration files. Like for instance, Apache uses the same kind of configuration setup where they use the tags like this for defining their different sections. So it's quite common. Here's for canceling a job, etc. etc. Now you shouldn't probably manipulate this by hand, in my opinion. I mean, you can. You can do it if you know what you're doing. It's not a problem. But that's all there is to the file. You can also do this graphically. And again, I'm not going to edit this file, so I'm going to hit escape, colon, Q, exclamation mark to quit without saving. Alright. So basically, the escape and colon means, hey, I'm going to type in a command. Q means you're going to quit, and exclamation mark means do it, execute it. So that's the whole reasoning behind all that crazy little characters there. If I'm doing cups graphically, which is how you're going to want to do it like most of the time, I can come in here. I could hunt for it through this thing here, or I could start typing it. I could just type in printer like that, and I can just click on printers, and lo and behold, it's going to launch a program here, or should anyways. Yeah, that lets me set up the printer. In which case, then I can add a new printer. And of course, I would need to put in the password because you have to be root privileged to do this. And then suddenly, now check it out, I can click on add a new printer, and I can add a local printer or a network printer, etc., etc. And if I'm connected to the network here, like at the school, it'd be like 10.71.110. 125, I think, for lab 4. And I think it's 123 for lab 1 for the IP address, if I remember off the top of my head. If you can't remember, you can always go up to the printer and tell it to print out its information on it. There's a little button if you go through the little configuration menu, and it can tell you what the IP address it has on there. Also, what type of printer. We're using an HP printer, DeskJet, LaserJet printer, and I think it's the 4200 series, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, if I'm doing a network printer, I could literally go in like this, and it uses IPP in order to do a network printer over the network. And this is really cool because when you set this up, then you can just send your printer jobs to that printer on the network. You can also set it up to be a local printer and then set the computer up to be a print server that other computers connect to that computer to do printing. Honestly, nowadays, you should be able to get a network printer for next to zilch for an office, no problem, and just hook it up to the network through an RJ45 connector cable right on the network, and it doesn't cost you squat. I mean, you get one for like $125 or something like that to put on a network out of business. So it's way more expensive to turn a computer into a printing server than it is to have a network printer that you buy and plug it in and run it on the network. It just is. So, I mean, because you have to realize you're having to pay for an entire computer there to do that. You know what I mean? And the computer's going to cost a lot more than what the network printer is going to cost. So, anyhow, this is where you can do it. You can also click plus on here to add more of them. You can have multiple printers. You can set privileges on those printers and all that stuff. We'll do it another day. I'll have to probably do it in the lab, but I'll show how to actually set up the connection for the printer and how to hook it up. Everything. I can't do it on the video because I'm not allowed to be connected to the internet or to the network with this computer. So because of that, I wouldn't be able to record it because they don't have recording software on any of the computers at the school, and I don't think I could keep up with it anyways. So yeah, there's that. Alright. There's another one here. And if I go into logs, var /log, there's actually several logs. And one of them is audit, but there's several others too. Now, a bunch of these log files are not text, and so therefore you can't just read them as you might think you could. You have to use special programs in order to actually view them. So there's yeah, I got you on that. But this is the audit file of log here. And I don't have anything to do really for this. We can do some other stuff though. I haven't gotten into it where you can actually set limits on the size of the different folders for each user, and then this can set up different allowable sizes using something called quotas, and this can determine whether or not someone's allowed to save additional files beyond their size. Because what you'll have is most people won't save tons and tons of files into their folder, but there'll be like 2% of the people will sit there and save ginormous amounts of data and then end up taking up the entire system, basically, and nothing flat. So with quotas, you can set up a limit to how much space someone can take up for their folder on the system. And this is really great if you're doing a server-side user system, because then what can happen is you can have a few users eat up the entire server, is what can happen if you don't set quotas. So quotas are pretty important, really, when you're dealing with people. Because they'll have all kinds of stuff in there that has nothing to do with work. You know, they'll have games or DVDs or whatever they burned, ripped, whatever. And you'll have everything under the sun in there. You know, they'll have like a terabyte worth of music, you know, sitting on their computer for work, and they can't do any of their work stuff because they have so much music on there. Or, I mean, anything you can imagine can happen on that. So, again, I'm hitting :Q to quit. So, setting up quotas is really important, and it limits people. You can even give them like a certain amount they can go over by, and it starts warning them when they get too close to their limit. And so you can let them go over the limit by a certain amount too, if you like, with quotas. I'm not going to get into it right now. We probably will later on, but just not at the moment. Alright, and then there's also the cups one. Cat cups. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a directory. And then here's our different ones like the access log, error log, page log, etc. So you can get information without actually having to go on to. So this basically lets you remote connect into the network server from like home or something like that, and then you can check to see if there's a printer fail on it without having to go into the office to do it. Use SSH to remote shell in, like I'm doing right here with these commands. You can do something called SSH. You'll learn about it later this quarter. It lets you remote connect. It's through what's called a secure shell, and basically everything's encrypted that you type as it goes back and forth between your regular console and the server. And in doing so, you're able to type any command you would do right at your computer. So I could literally come in here and say that the printer's screwing up or something's going wrong, right? Well, I can check to see why they're not able to access it by checking the access log. I just cat it like so, and I get all this information. I could have used a one like tail, and I could have said access log. And then tail is only going to give me the last so many commands here of it. So it doesn't give me the whole entire file, for instance. Clear. See? So instead of giving me the entire file, it gives me like the last 10 lines of it. So if you're only interested in what's happened recently, you can use tail. There's a special option with tail. I think it's tail dash, is it F? Might be F. It puts it in interactive mode, more or less, and it will actually sit there with tail running continuously, and then every time someone does something, it just pops up the newest entry. And that's pretty cool because what you can do is you can test stuff and then see it pop up interactively as you do it, and not have to keep typing tail. And so this lets you quickly test things for different logs to see what's happening with information coming back from the servers, for if there's connection failures or errors or whatever. You can actually monitor them for those log files. Does that make sense? Cool. So tail is really useful. Head is the opposite. Head is where, let me type in clear again. Head's going to grab the top of the file. So you make heads or tails of it. Head here, for instance, access log. I'm too lazy to type that. I just hit the tab key. And it gives me the first 10 lines of it instead of the last 10 lines. So if you're only interested in the first 10 lines of something, you can use head. Now you can do some special options there and actually tell it to do a particular set here. And if you're going, well, I'm not going to remember all this. That's fine. If you go to the help here by doing -- help whatnot for one of these commands, typically it'll tell you all about it. So that's what I just did just now. I just did the -- help after tail there with the space, and it let me know exactly what options are available to me. -n is going to be the line numbers if you want the line numbers with it. It might be -f for the following. So I think I said -f earlier. I don't remember. I think I did though. Sleep interval, verbose, yeah. Help version. Yeah, so I'm thinking -f. Okay, cool. There's also a way of telling it how many lines you want to display. And I don't remember what the option is for that. I'm not seeing it right off the top of my head either. But anyways, yeah, I think if you do tail, not trial, but tail -f, I think you do lowercase f. But yeah, you do lowercase f. And you can also do a -n here and then access log. Oh, just one number of lines. -n is the number of lines. Give me 5. So there, it gave me the last 5 lines, and it put it into interactive mode, and it's waiting for something to happen. Now, if anything happens, it's automatically going to display the very next line that comes up afterwards. So that's pretty cool, because I just put it into interactive mode I was just talking about. It is the -f, like I was remembering. And -n is the one where you can tell it how many lines. Standard is 10, but I can change it to a different value if I want it to be. So 5 maybe is what I want instead of 10. The -n lets me do that for how many lines I want to see for the last set of lines in the file. So that way I don't have to see a bunch of stuff I don't care about. But with this being an interactive mode like this, then I can, anytime something happens, I can see it update. So that's really useful for network administration. Never underestimate the power of logs. Log files are how you get your information as what on earth is going wrong. Because when their server is screwing up or something's not working, whatever, they put it in the log files. So your log files is your whole troubleshooting area of where you're going to find out what the problem is so you can fix it, if that makes sense. So by all means, log files matter a lot, and probably well, I won't get into it right now, but there's a number of them that are really, really useful. Let's look at CUPS SSL, which is secure layer, and basically encryption for your printing. Say you have something that's high security and you don't want someone to be able to read what's being printed, you can encrypt the printer transmission going across to the printer, so that way it can't be intercepted and be read. So that's what the SSL is about. Let's have a look at that real quick. It wouldn't be var, it'd be etc, because this would be configuration. Yeah, etc/cups, because it has to do with the printer, right? And then there's the SSL folder. So just like there's nothing in here because you'd have to have it set up. But just like you can have SSL for Apache for people making purchases with credit cards on the internet, you need to have SSL so it encrypts the credit card number and their information. So some jerk doesn't come along and just steal the credit card information and start charging a lot of people to their stuff to their credit card. We have to use SSL to protect them against that. Because if you don't, that is what will happen. Whereas on here we're using it for protecting against people from reading the printer information. So also we can look at var/spool/mail. This is where your mail is stored. We just set up a mail server. I don't have a mail server set up right now. So that'd be interesting. Yeah, I was about to say, I don't even know if this. Oh wait, I need a CD into that, right? Yes, sir. Depends how much. The question was how much bandwidth does a mail server use, and the answer is depends on the amount of users on the system. Just for you, not squat. If it's just for you and no one else, you're just not going to use squat for nothing. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, you don't rack up nearly enough to matter as far as that goes. You'd be shocked what you can handle on a mail server. I mean, you can really handle quite a bit. And if you put it into a database system, it can handle way more users. Like you can go from like handling several thousand to handling like hundreds of thousands if you put it into a database system. So it makes it way more efficient. And if you go like multi-server database with it, even better. It just increases your access times like significantly because database is really efficient at accessing data. It's like one of the fastest things for accessing data is a database. It is the most efficient thing for accessing data is a database system. That's why we use database systems for all these companies for storing and handling data because they're engineered for doing that really, really fast. That's why Oracle is such a big deal. That's why IBM's DB2 is such a big deal, so on and so forth. MySQL is a really big deal for it's used for most websites. It is probably what you will use for a lot of your email servers too, unless your company has bought like an enterprise edition thing from Oracle where it has built-in connection in with the mail servers, and the company pays like $200,000 for the setup or whatever, and then it would include the mail server. You'd have to set it up though. It'd be SendMail. If you're using Oracle, they use SendMail. IBM uses Postfix, which I definitely prefer Postfix because it doesn't have the problems that SendMail does. SendMail is not as secure and as fast and other things too. But anyways, so here's this stuff here, cat star. Oh, these are different students. Different users. So nothing in any of these. but it's not a surprise since I don't have a mail server set up. Uh, otherwise, we'd probably see something in there. But yeah, that's where the mail spool is. A couple other configurations they want to show too. They want to show the spool cron job. Cron jobs are useful because it lets you basically schedule something to happen later on, and in doing so, it keeps you from having to hang around to do it. So cron jobs basically lets you schedule tasks to be done server side or whatever on a computer, not even server side, it can be client side too, it doesn't matter. You set cron job to happen at like 12 o'clock at midnight, and you don't have to be around there for it to happen. You can go off, you can have lunch while, you know, the system does a whole bunch of stuff for you, you know, type thing. Then you can just automate it. And if there's a problem, you can have it email you the problem. You can have it send an email to you or something on your cell phone, and then you can read what the problem is. And you know, if you have a little computer or a Android tablet or whatever, you can go into your system and fix it right there from the table without ever having to get up and leave to do it. So, I mean, there's some benefits to this stuff. To networking. I mean, you can really go mobile easily and fix things. So dev TTY1, let's look at that real quick. Dev is your devices, if you remember right. This is your drivers and things of that nature. It really would help if I start typing CD in front of it. Alright, and then TTY. Alright, so that's going to be a device, and then 1, or it should be TTY. Okay, well, we don't have it. And you'll see all the TTYs here as they connect to different devices to talk to them. Yeah, so you can communicate to it. I could echo to it, etc., and send information to TTY1. They can be used for different things. Like it could be a terminal, it could be different things for communications of that nature. Redirect to TTY. Or I don't need to do that. Well, I could do that. But nah, it wants me to. Okay, sorry, I do need to do an arrow. Yeah, see, basically, so I sent the text stuff to TTY1 to communicate to it directly. I can do that. It'd be cooler if I could show you where you could like send it and then see it on another terminal. I can't remember how to do that off the top of my head. There's a way to do that where you can literally send a message from one to another thing through TTY, whatever. So it is like a communication one, and the terminals, I believe, run off of TTY, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've coded something like that. It's been like probably 6-7 years since I've coded those communication sockets. I did more recently in the last just year or so with SDL, but I'm not getting into that. I wrote a whole client server system with that. Anyhow, /bin/chmod. Remember what chmod does? It lets you change permissions of things, and we've done that one more times than you want to remember. Already, I'm sure. Don't worry, you get to do it some more. /user/bin/procmail stores mail. So that's one of your local mail servers. So there's a couple different ones. There's like SendMail would be like your big one that people would access, wherever. Procmail would be like a local one for local user side system. /usr/bin/locate. I can't remember that one. Yeah, I can't remember that one. I'm sorry. I'll have to look that one up. And then there's cron tab to list all the different jobs that are going to be executed at a particular time. And that'd be /usr/bin/cron tab. Alright, so there's that. Now let's talk about some of these special variables that can be used. And so the special variables would be like host name, path, mail, pwd, user. Let's also talk about $home. There's a number of them. We will actually use them when we start doing scripting and doing scripting languages, and we start coding with this stuff. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm just going to throw a mix of things in here and kind of introduce some ideas as we go along here. But say I wanted to display what's inside of a variable. I'm going to use the echo command to display what's inside of a variable. If I say $home like this, check it out, it displays /root. Why? Because that's the home directory for my currently logged in user that I'm using right now. Remember, I changed over to root. So since I changed over to root, my home directory as root is /root instead of being student /home/student. Does that make sense? So if I wasn't root privileged and I was student, for instance, instead, and I do echo $home, all caps, then it says /home/student, because my current home directory for this user is going to be /home/student. Does that make sense? Now, so I'm going to show you later on. This is actually quite useful. You can determine if someone is logged in or not as root by checking to see if their home directory is root. Does that make sense? Because if they are logged in as root, then their home directory is currently set to root/root. And if it is, that means they are logged in as the administrator, which means they are allowed to do XYZ task. And you can use this as a check to see whether or not someone is actually allowed to do what it is you want them to do on the system or not, to be able to run your script. Does that make sense? We'll do a conditional test. This is also useful for other things. Say you need to set up a user account for each new user, right? But wouldn't it suck if you had to go in there and basically type in each user's home directory that you're setting up? That wouldn't be too much fun, right? You don't have to, because you can use this $home variable over and over again. So no matter what the user account is, it'll do it for that account, because we always know what account is their account when you run the script in there as their user. So you can have it go in and create all their mail directory folders and stuff like this in their user folder. Maybe create all their web folders that they have for hosting a website off of their user account, etc. If you're doing like an Apache server, whatnot, or virtual hosting, all this stuff. So normally what you'd have to do, go in and type and set all that stuff up. Well, gee, what if it takes like an hour to set up a user, right? And then you have a new person buying an account every minute. It's a bit of a problem. They're going to have to hire a lot of network admins to handle all that. You're going to be a very busy person on a regular basis, right? And you're going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again. And you're going to make typos. You have to go back and you have to fix it and all this stuff, right? Well, if you put it as a script, which we'll learn later on this quarter, you can just run the same script over and over again and just have it do it. And so if you have a script set up for doing this, you could do like that hour task in like 1 second or a few seconds. No kidding. Because then it's scripted. So after you do something several times, you get really comfortable with it, you know how you want to do it over and over again, you can write a script to automate your work. So that way you're not spending tons of time doing it, and then you can spend more time doing whatever it is that you want to do. There's a lot of network admins that don't do all that much work because on Linux, because stuff doesn't break, and then they automate stuff. And then, so what they do, they study for more certifications and make more money as they pass more certifications. And a company loves that because they want you to have more certifications. The more certifications you get, the more money you make. So, basically you're getting paid to study for your other exams and things of that nature, that you can get additional certifications and make more moolah. So that's not a bad deal. And automating stuff means you have more time to basically make more money, if you want to think of it that way. Anyways, $home. I can also echo path. Now, path is going to be a special variable. Now, notice something here. We're putting a $sign in front of each variable name. Each variable, like for instance, home, capital Home, home, is a variable, right? But the dollar sign in front of it means I want to access the content of that variable. Does that make sense? So anytime I want to access what's stored inside of a variable, I need to put a dollar sign in front of it. If I want to assign something to that variable, I leave the dollar sign off it. Because I'm not trying to access the contents, I'm trying to change that variable. Make sense? Okay, so that's why I keep putting a dollar sign in front of it like this. It's something kind of weird with the shell, whatever. I know other programming languages don't use this or whatever, but they do in this one, and this is kind of how it works. But right here's path. Now, if you think about it, you guys are familiar with Microsoft Windows, where you go in and you go into the control panel, and then you can go into the path. Maybe some of you guys know about this, and then you can put additional libraries or executables in there, whatever, so it knows about them. So you can just type them, and you don't have to sit there and put the entire path to it in there, right? Same thing here. So we're making different folders. Acknowledge different folders that exist. For instance, /usr/lib/ccache colon here, and you put colon to separate them because that's the delimiter between them. /usr/local/bin /usr/bin /bin /usr/local/sbin /usr/sbin /home/student /local /bin /home/student/bin, etc. And you could add additional ones to this if you wanted to. And this is where you could do it. And this could be very useful. Maybe you want to make like Java or whatever execute directly from and just by typing in Java or JRE or something like that, and not have to put out the entire path to where the Java is installed on the system. If I add it to my path variable, it will be able to find it, and I can just type in JRE or Java or whatever it is, and actually have it execute right from the prompt, and I don't have to type out the entire path to that executable program. So maybe I want to do gedit, and just type in gedit and it runs, not edit, sorry. If maybe I want to do something like that, and then it just launches this program like this. See? Make sense? Otherwise, I have to do what? I have to type in user/bin/ See what I'm saying? But check it out. User bin is right there. So when I type in gedit, it knew where it was because of this path variable. I didn't have to type the whole thing. This is why CentOS doesn't execute squat for nothing, because they didn't set up a path variable. Something very simple. I cannot believe they didn't do it. Like every distribution does this for the user with the standard default ones here, but they didn't. But you can add additional ones in here as needed on your system, so that way you don't have to type the full path to everything each time you want to do stuff. Does that make sense to everybody? So this is really actually very useful and can make your life a lot easier. And it's something maybe the end users really need type deal. So this is particularly nice. Echo $mail. And it tells me the location of the mail for that user, where it's being stored. And it's being stored currently in /var/spool/mail/student. And that's where the mail is being set up. We can set this to be a different location where we could actually have the mail being stored in that user's account. So it could be in /home/student/mail or whatever, etc. No kidding, you can set that up. It depends on how you set up your mail server. I'm not getting into that. Totally depends on that if you do mail dir or one of these other ones. So it depends on how you have it set up. But the way this one's set up currently is that it's going to the standard location. This is standard /var/spool/mail/student here. And basically it's always /var/spool/mail/ and then whatever the username is stored in there. Is this making sense? Alright, so echo $pwd. And that was dev. Oh wow, that's really alright, I might talk about that later. That is really getting in depth. anyways, this shows me what the user is, $user, so I can use that to find out, for instance. So I can just say echo, and these are system variables that always exist. You can always use them, they run always. So there's a problem right there. I echoed $USR and it still told me a student, even though I have become root privileged. Right? So again, I want to see if they're root privileged or not. I need to use what? $home. Yeah, in order to find that out. There's some other stuff for how to modify strings of text, like it could be really useful for mangling text input, for instance, from a web address or whatnot, and redirecting it. I'm not going to get into that right now. There's some special stuff you can do where it automatically fills in the values for very tight control over search patterns or string text patterns. They're showing some of that stuff right now. I'm going to skip that for now. I'm going to go over that kind of stuff at a later time in the course, towards the end of the course, because that's pretty complicated, and I do not want to touch that right now. That's too complicated to really go over at the moment. Alright. Did I go over VI at all in the other video? I don't remember. A little bit. So I went over how to save and how to edit the files with the I key and all that stuff. Anybody remember? No? Huh? Don't remember? Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let me cdn/etc. Yeah, but we're going to do some other videos too on top of it. So, because that one shouldn't take you long. Alright, so let's look at the host file real quick. So if I type in vim and I say hosts, like this, we can see a listing, and this is basically how you set up a static IP address. This is how you change the IP address and the name of the computer. No kidding. This is how you do it. So here's loopback. I'd like to tell you a little story about loopback, and it's a true story. It's quite funny. This is 127.0.0.1. This is the same way it is. This is the IPv4. And this is the same for every operating system. It's always, for loopback, it's always 127.0.0.1, and there's loopback in every operating system. Okay, loopback points back to your own system. So say you want to copy a file from one location on your hard drive to another location. It is technically a networking operation, but underneath the hood, what it uses is loopback to say this computer, and it points to itself. Does that make sense? So loopback is an IP address that points to your own computer. Everybody understand that? Okay. So normally an IP address tells you where the computer is, whatever. This one is a local address that always points to yourself, always. So what this one network admin did, she finished setting up her security on her Linux server, and she did a real good job. She set it up. She knew what she was doing. And she went to one of these IRC channels because that's where a lot of hackers hang out. It's also where network admins hang out and a bunch of technical people. It's a really great place if you're having trouble with your networking and you can't figure out how to do something. Try popping into checking out some of the IRC channels. You can get help there a lot of times too. Really useful while you're out on the job or whatnot, because network admins will pop in and help each other, and then pay it forward. If someone helps you, help someone else if you know the answer to something. Type deal, you know what I mean, as far as that goes. But yeah, they're on the IRC channels. It's quite common. I'll show you where to get to one of these IRC chats here real quick. But basically, she popped in there to where there was a hacker group, into one of the chat channels there for the hacker group. And she told them, she said, I just finished setting up my security and none of you can break into my server. And they said, oh yeah? Give us the IP address. She said, sure. So she told them 127.0.0.1. Now, hackers, most of them are pretty stupid. I'm going to be honest with you. They really don't know much. And so most of them just run little hacking script kiddies, run little hacking programs that other actually talented hackers actually write. And the talented hackers give them out because it makes it harder to trace them as to where it's coming from, type deal. Because if they give it out and it's all over the place, then you can't really find where it's coming from, type deal. So that's why they do it. So most of the people that are hackers that break into computers have no idea how squat works for the most part. They really don't. They just like to feel like they know something, they're more powerful or whatever. Ha 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 ha. They're really stupid, quite frankly. So they all start sending all their viruses and their attack programs to 127.0.0.1. So essentially they're sending it to their own computer, and one after another starts dropping off the chat as they destroy their own computers. She wiped out the entire chat room. She was the only one left. So, this is what 127.0.0.1 is loopback, and it matters, okay? And so that's why we have that there. And the name associated with the loopback of 127.0.0.1 is localhost. Another name, now you can associate multiple names with this, is localhost.localdomain. They also go with localhost4, localhost4.localdomain, and that's because it's IPv4, so that's what it did. Now IPv6 loopback is a different address for IPv6. It is ::1. ::1 on every system is loopback for IPv6, which is great because that's actually an address you can remember for IPv6. Every other address for IPv6, good luck remembering it. Because if you ever see an IPv6 address, you can remember the IPv4 ones off the top of your head and be able to call them out or whatnot. IPv6, forget it, man. You're not remembering squat from that thing. It is really complicated for the address when it's generated. But what I can do, say, let me show you something. I can come over here to my terminal real quick. Wait a minute, I'm in my terminal. I'm being an idiot. Hold on a second. Let me hit colon here, Q, exclamation mark, exit out. What I can do is I can do ifconfig. Now, if you're on CentOS or something like that, you're going to have to say sbin/ifconfig. Now, you're not going to be on CentOS, but I'm saying that in the future, if you're ever on CentOS, because they didn't put /sbin into the path variable. Now, if you go ahead and set up your path variable like I was talking about and actually go edit that, whatnot, so it's permanent, whatever, then you won't have to type in all that stuff. Like, you won't have to type in sbin and then /ifconfig. So that's why I can just normally just type ifconfig on most of these Linux and it works. Bam, there we are. So this gives you all this system information, and this thing is awesome. It gives you all kinds of information that you wouldn't normally get out of Windows, and it's great. So Etho0 is going to be my Ethernet card. So this is my first Ethernet card. Now you can have multiple Ethernet cards, and that's why it starts at numbering it at 0 for instance, for the first one here. And then we can keep going from there. It says how many packets have been received. It's RX right here, and how many have been transferred, TX. And you can actually see all that information on everything that's going on. It's great. MTU. LO is loopback. So this is loopback right here when you see this. Okay. And again, what's transferred and what's come back, check it out. Here's your IP address. Now, normally, I'll point out something. I would have an internet connection, and I would have an iNet address up here on my Ethernet card, and that would be my IP address for this computer that it got from the router or whatever that's dynamically allocated. Or it could be a static address if it's set up as a static setup. Does that make sense? Instead of DHCP. But right here, this ether right here, this is my MAC address. Sometimes it'll come up as saying H hardware address too. And then VIR-BR0 is a virtual network address that's assigned to us from VMware Player. And we can actually network multiple VMware players together because they can have these different virtual IP addresses on the different virtual machines. Now, everybody has the same IP address on your virtual machine for this setup that we did. So it'll be 192.168.122.1. And so we can actually use this value and give ourselves a custom name for our server here. And then later on, if I want to network this with another virtual machine, I can do it and call it by name, etc. if I have both entries and both host files for the different virtualized IP addresses. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Some people are saying yes, and other people are going, oh my gosh, he just said too much complicated stuff. Alright, so hold on, let me say Control-Shift-C here to copy that. Notice I didn't say Control-C because Control-C kills a program. And then I'm going to say VIM hosts. Like this, I'm going back into my host file. Or trying to anyways. Let me scrolling. All right, let me hit I key here and enter. All right, awesome. I'm just going to hit Control, Shift, and V to paste that. So there's my new IP address. I'm going to hit the Tab key over here just so I can space it over. What should we call the server? Anybody? Nestler's. Okay, Nestler server. There it is. Nice and boring. Awesome. All right. Hit escape. If I hold down Shift and hit ZZ like that, that will save that file. Now, there's another way I could have done it too. If I want to do it the hard way, the easy way is hold down Shift and then hit Z twice by holding down Shift. So it's double capital Z's. Does that make sense? That's the fast way. Hit escape first, though. If you want to do it the hard way, hit escape, then hit colon, then hit W for write, which means save, then hit Q to quit, then hit exclamation mark to do it. And then it saved, quit, and exit out. That was it. So that saved it. So what I can do now is I'll prove this works. I can ping, right? I can actually tell it, say, hey, let me test this connection. Let me test this IP address to see if it's valid, right? Ping is your tool for doing that. It's a great testing tool for networking. So I come in here and say ping, and I say Nestler server, right? Check it out. There I am. So I'm now known as Nestler server, tied to the virtualized IP address in my file as a static lookup. Yes, sir. What's that? I just typed in ping, and I told it, here, let me show you. Let's hit the up arrow. I typed in ping, and I told it Nestler server. And it pulled up the internal IP address here for the internal network, for the virtualized network, because I assigned this, that address, that name, inside the host file when I saved it. So it used it. And so this is how you do a static IP address setup, lookup on your system. Yeah, I guess it'd be something like that. Yeah. I could also do loopback here too, where instead of doing ping here, I can say localhost, for instance. And this is going to be loopback. See? It's 127.0.0.1. Just remember that was one of the names saved for it. I mean, there's several different ones. I mean, I could just as easily go 4 here, and that'd be the 4 one. I can easily come up here and say, you know, local domain, etc., etc., etc. And to be even more, I think, did they put the 4 right here on this other one? No, it was on the other location. I think after local domain, maybe. I'm trying to remember. I never used this one. Yeah, I don't ever use that one, so I'm not doing it right. Whatever. The other one they have was an IPv6, right? So localhost 6. It still came up with 27. That's that one. All right, cat host. Okay, yeah. So it's still tied either way. Whatever. Okay, so what's localhost 4 local domain 4? Oh, local domain 4. Alright. Gotcha. So 4 here also. So that was the other naming one. Sorry, my mistake. But so that's all the different names for loopback. But the one you'll use most of the time is localhost and localhost.domain, local domain. Those are the two you're going to use for loopback, like always, practically. There. To be more clear, I'll just highlight them. These are the two you'll use for loopback always. Basically. I never see any others used, like, ever. So, even though I just typed in several different ones, these are the only two that are actually used right here. Alright. Well, with that shows a little bit of networking capabilities and some of that stuff. Let's see here. What was one of the other things I was going to show? Oh yeah, I want to show fstab file. We'll get into this some more later on, but I want to show the file system table file, and that's what fstab is, or it looks like fstab. If I type in vim fstab right here, so what it does, it comes up and shows the different volumes, or the different, volumes, the different partitions on the system with the directories mounted. And so this is a hard mount. This is a mount that happens when the system boots up. Okay, so this isn't something you do while the system is up and running. After it's been up and running, then you mount it. If you want something like that, you're going to auto mount, or you're going to use the mount command, and then you mount to unmount something at the command line. You have to be root to mount and unmount stuff, unless you're using auto mount. I'm not getting into that right now. Just know that it exists. Let's just worry about FS tab. So say I need to add another partition. Like say I want to add a Windows hard drive in here. I could do that. I could do a FAT32 system in here, or I could do an NTFS in here and actually mount it to a particular location. So like for instance, I could come in here, and if I wanted to, I key to enter, I could come in here and I could say something like depending on what the location is. Now, so this is done to the other part, but depending on what it would be, /dev/ I don't know. Maybe it's SDB here, and then 0 for the first one, first partition on the second hard drive. Maybe that particular one is what is the hard drive that you're going to mount as the Windows drive, right? And then you said, okay, so you're going to give it some kind of location. So maybe it's /Windows, for instance, for the folder. It's going to be on the system. And then what you're going to do is you're going to give it a file type. So NTFS. Now notice you'd have to have NTFS installed on your system on Linux. You can, though. It's not a problem. And then from there, maybe something like defaults, assuming I can spell and I don't mistype stuff. And I could do like a 1 and a 2 if I wanted to in order to fisk it or whatnot. Maybe I don't want to fisk it. Maybe because it's Windows, I don't want to fisk it. Depends. If it's a Windows operating system, I don't want to fisk it. If it's just a bunch of files sitting on the system, it's perfectly fine to fisk it. But the numbers mean something, and the zeros mean don't fisk, basically. And what fisk means is doing a inode balancer on it, where it checks to say, hey, are these symbolic links actually good? Are they actually connected to anything or not? If it goes and finds that they're disconnected or not connected to anything, then it says, hey, we got a problem here. They're not resolving. These files, these connections for the symbolic link, basically it's like having a link on your desktop. You double click it, doesn't do anything because the file that the link goes to is no longer there. It's been deleted or moved. You're familiar with this happening in Windows or whatnot? Same thing in Linux, but Linux will actually recognize that fact and do something about it. It has a journal and file system and a file system 4, and it can check it and find it quickly. The NTFS isn't set up that way, so it takes longer, but you could actually fisk it. Windows does not like to be fisked because it does not like to fix its problems. It just shuts down. So Linux does a whole set of checks when it shuts down and goes through a whole set of checks. Windows doesn't do that. It just shuts down. So there's a problem if you try to fisk Windows because it freaks out if you do it. And if you have both Linux and Windows installed on the same hard drive, basically Linux is going to fisk Windows. Guaranteed, it's going to happen every time it fisks, because it doesn't just fisk its partition, it fisks the entire freaking hard drive. Okay. So it's not a thing about that. Just don't install Linux and Windows on the same hard drive. Fisk is where Linux tries to go and fix things that are unbalanced, meaning that the symbolic links are broken or whatever. Windows doesn't like when Linux does that, so they battle with each other. You never install the two on the same hard drive. It's not a good idea. Can you do it? Yes. Is it a good idea to do it? No. Type thing. And also be aware of this. Windows tends to like to wipe out the competition quite literally. So if you install Linux on a separate hard drive, you need to physically remove it from the computer when you install Windows or do anything like that. Anytime you put a Windows disk in to install Windows, reformat your hard drive and install Windows, not only will Windows reformat that hard drive and install Windows on that hard drive, but it'll also wipe all other hard drives on your computer that have any operating system other than Windows. Now, if it has Windows, it won't wipe it out, but If it doesn't have Windows, it will go out and wipe out literally the competition. So if you have Linux on another hard drive, you need to physically unhook it, remove it from the computer, disconnect it. We don't have to actually take it out of the computer, but you do need to take out the power cord and take out the data connection cord in the back of the hard drive, depending on which one. If you have SATA or if you're doing whatever for your IDE, etc. SCSI, if you're using old SCSI, you basically need to pull those connectors out of the back of the hard drive, because if you don't, Windows will wipe it out. So be aware of that. Be very careful about that. So what I have on my computer at home, I actually have a removable hard drive tray, and then I literally lock it and unlock it, and then I shut down the computer and I just pull the hard drive anytime I need it. I got so tired of dealing with it. I didn't like popping open my computer every time I need to install Windows or whatnot or have any problems. And I literally use slide trays, and I just pop in new hard drives with operating systems on them, and bam, now that computer is running that operating system, or running this operating system or this configuration or whatever. So yeah, be aware of that, because Windows does do that. They don't play nice with the competition, I'm afraid. But for instance, if I had this drive here or whatever, I could do this as it's set up. Now, I don't have another drive in the system. I would not want to save this. If I save this configuration like this and were to reboot on the system, it would prevent this computer from booting up. This virtual machine wouldn't boot. And I'd have to go into run level 1 and edit the file by hand with vim, like I'm doing right now. I'd have to do it like this and come in here. And the easy way to get rid of this is to come in here like this and put a pound sign in front of it to comment it out. If it's got a comment sign in front of it, it means it doesn't exist to the operating system. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. So, and then all you have to do after that is hit the escape key, Shift ZZ. All you have to do is find whatever the offender is and then comment it out, and then system will boot up. That's also why I don't like to do NFS inside of fstab file, because if I do a network file system mounting, say basically what you do is you connect to a server for a partition share that's being offered by the server, and then the client connects to it. And we can do this in the fstab file if I want. For instance, I can come in here, and instead of doing this /dev/ etc. What I could do is I could come in here with the I, and I could say something like John Doe server colon slash accounting files, something like that, space. And then on my system, maybe it gets mounted to /mnt/accounting, whatever, etc. And then from there, I could say NFS like this, space, something like defaults, and I would definitely say 00, because I do not, the client should never ever fix the server type thing. So if I had something like this set up, this would actually let me remote network connect to another server and mount it. But the problem with this is if that server is ever down, it'll stop this computer, this client, from booting up, because it comes to its entry. And then you have to go into run level 1 on every daggone machine where the server is down on, and basically comment this out in order for the computers to boot up until you can get the server up. So you just gave yourself a lot of extra work. Instead, using auto mounting is a much better solution, honestly. But FYI, there's that, just pointing that out. You can actually set up networking connections for your network file systems with this file also. You can, I just don't recommend it. People do it on a regular basis, don't get me wrong. They're like, yeah, we'll just take the risk so that way it just comes up automatically. But, that server better stay up. That's all I gotta say. On that deal, it better not be down. Otherwise, all the workers are down because they can't boot their computers in the morning. Auto mounting would basically be like an icon on the desktop, and they double click. It's just like putting a CD-ROM in or one of these USB hard drives. You plug it in, it auto mounts when you do it. That's auto mounting. And so basically they can just have an icon on their system, and then when they click it, it automatically goes through, does a network connection to it, and then the folder appears. That's actually the server. They can't tell. It just looks like a folder on their system. So, I mean, quite literally, it'd be like this. To them, it'd be like this. Hold on a second. To them, it would be like, okay, see the scripts folder right here? It'd be like this. Literally, it looked just like this, and you can't tell the difference. Make sense? Yeah, it could be like this also for the scripts folder. It would be something like /mnt. MNT is popular for mounts, however. This is a standard location for a lot of stuff, so you could have it appear in here, which would be a good idea if you do that, put inside of /mnt. But if you do that, though, realize that it will come up automatically. So when the system comes up, they're connected already to the server, and they're good to go. You know. But if that server ever goes down, you got a problem because they can't turn on their computer. When they turn it on, they just won't get past the it'll error out before they even get anywhere. And then depending on how many workers you have to deal with, you'll have umpteen people wanting assistance so that their computer can boot up. The reason I like to have it to where someone can boot up because they can typically do their work while you're getting your server up and going. Otherwise, you have every employee down, and it's however many dollars an hour for each employee. It's how much you're costing the company while you're down. And trust me, they're going to want you to have that server up with all the employees can't work. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? So from my standpoint, I don't like the idea of preventing a whole staff of employees from working because my server's not up, and that's just like extra pressure to have on you to get the server up right away. You know what I mean? That you don't have to put yourself in that situation. I'm not real worried about the servers going down, but anything could happen. A hard drive could fail, or whatever, and then you're gonna have to replace the hard drive. And while it's having to be reset up for your while it's being reformatted and set up as a logical volume inside of being striped as RAID 5 or whatever in there from the RAID controller card, and it's reconstructing the data. While all that stuff's going on, you're down. You know what I mean? Until that's up and going again. So I'm just saying. That's just and hard drives are going to fail. I mean, it's going to happen. They don't go forever. They're great, but they don't go forever. No one's does. So, any questions on that, or is that making sense? Okay, so we covered a number of important files here. As you can see, these are pretty important. They do have a lot. We haven't done sudoers. Sudoers we're going to do another day, I think. I don't know what time it is. Let me see where we are on the time check here. Is it 12? Oh, 10:12. Okay. Yeah, no, I think well, let's see here. Sewers. Sorry, I'm not thinking my mistake. Cat. Sudoers, you can come in here literally and edit this file. And when you do, it says machine commands, you can allow certain users to be able to use sudo, like I was doing with Ubuntu, and they can become root privileged. There's actually a lab on how to do this. I can't remember where it is in this lab book of like 200 pages off the top of my head. But yeah, that does work, and this is where you come into this file. I'll hit it on probably like next week. I'll probably do this one. One other thing I need to show you guys, and that is how to how to add users. Did I show you? I showed how to use add users, whatnot, graphically in the other video. But what I didn't show was how to do it by command line. So let's go over how to do it by command line, because that's important, and then we'll stop it there. Okay. So one of the things that we can do, and we can write this into a script here. Actually, yeah, let's introduce you to writing scripts. So People are like, no, it's not bad. It's not bad. I promise. It's not bad. So I'm just going to go to another terminal. Not another terminal, sorry, another desktop. And I'm just going to come in here and say gedit. Click right here. And let's go ahead and launch this right here. And then I'm going to say # and then exclamation mark /bin/bash. And you're probably going, well, that's ugly. It is. So let's do something about that. Can't see that? Alright, we'll make it bigger. Hold on a second. First off, let's save this so that way it colorizes. So I'm going to save this as create users. So let's go into the scripts folder here. I'm just going to call it create. I'll do all lowercase. Create users. .sh. And by doing .sh, I'm telling it, hey, this is going to be a shell script. And so all those shell commands we've been typing, you can actually type them into a file and have it automatically do them all for you. And you just type in the name of the file, and bam, it goes and does everything you tell it to do. So this is how you can automate your tasks. Like, it'd be like an hour-long setup. You can put it into a file like this, run that file, bam, it does the hour-long task for you. That would normally take to set it up. Yeah, it's a script. Yep. So the shell commands can basically be written up as a script. If I go over here to my edit, I can go to my preferences. And what I can do is I can say highlight current line. I can say turn on line numbers. I can say highlight matching brackets. That's also helpful. I can go over to my editor here. I can say enable automatic indentation. And then the other thing I want to do is come over here and turn off use fixed font system at 11 here. Change my monospace here for maybe 12 for you guys so you can see what I'm doing. And I'll just set this up to like 16 maybe. That's not big enough, is it? That is fine? Okay, cool. Awesome. So this right here tells it what shell we're going to code in. And you're going to use bash like almost always now, because bash pretty much has all the capabilities of all the other shells. Back when you may have used corn or one of these other shells, shish, tish, etc. But now, and literally you would have done like /bin/csh or maybe tcsh, etc. But now bash has pretty much replaced all of them, and everybody just uses bash anymore. So it's used probably 99.99999% of the time. I'll leave a little bit of space open there for possibly other people using another shell, but there's really no need for it anymore because it has all the functionality of all the other shells. But if I say echo here, creating group staff, so like I'll just say creating, I'll put this in quotes, so this is going to display it to the screen, creating users and groups. Alright, and then from here you can have it automate it. So maybe you need the same stuff over and over again. So I could say group add, like so, and then I can do a -I on it, and then space here, and I say, let's do 1001, whatever, because we already have, remember, students taking up 1000, so it's not possible. Staff here. Now, realistically, you could do this instead of doing something like staff. I mean, this could be realistic if you're doing like an office thing or whatnot for each computer, and you just run this one script that creates it. But realistically, you may be doing this for servers where you're setting up a special configuration for different, maybe web servers or something of that nature. You have to have certain special users for that web server in order for it to work. They're standard users, part of the system, like www-data, for instance. Yeah. Yes, there is. He asks, is there a way to hit one button and have it turn all the computers and boot them all up at once? The answer is yes. You can set up the computer. This is more complicated. You can set up the computer to be turned on and booted. You're opening yourself to a security risk doing this, though. But you can set up your computer, your other computers, to be booted. Just turn on the BIOS from an Ethernet card. and so thus you could send it from your cell phone even, or something like that if you wanted. Literally send it from there and have it turn on all the computers before you even walked in the door and have them boot up. But realize if you can do that, so can someone else if they ever figure out your password and such. And then they can boot up your network anytime they like during the night and hack in to it. Yeah. So well, if it's hardwired and then you had it set to where only and it doesn't go out to the internet, then yeah, you don't. It depends on how you're setting your stuff up. Yeah, you can have an internal network, right? But the internal network would have to be not connected to the internet for that. Yeah, yeah. In which case, yeah, then you don't have to worry about if it's not connected to the internet or have any outside line connection to it. Yeah, there's no problem. That has to be high security stuff if it's no internet connection, because most offices use an internet connection for them to do their work, because they have to correspond with other business people, etc. They have to be able to get email, etc. So, I mean, it's just stuff that happens. I haven't been in an office where they didn't have internet on the work computers, but if it's something like high security, I could easily see them not having internet on some of those. I know some of the high military stuff requires that. So, and then you could echo out what you're doing. So for each one, so for instance, if you want to make it user friendly, like you could tell it, say, echo out creating staff group. Is this making sense? What echo does, more or less? Cool. I could do another one. I could say echo. Let's just do another group here. I'll call it press. Creating. I'm lazy. I'm not doing that. I'm too lazy. Actually, this is efficiency. I like to call it laziness, though. It's more fun. Bam, there I am. So I'm too lazy to type all that over again. So what I do instead is I come in here and do this. And I just edit what I did. I mean, sure, I could go in there and retype it all up, but better chance for making a mistake. Slower, takes longer. I have to do more work. I don't want to do more work. And then it wants me to do another one. Okay, great. There we are again. And instead of doing staff here, they want political. I try to avoid politics, but whatever. I don't like this group. Lies, all lies. Alright. 1003. Alright, besides that. I could do some other users too here. So I can say echo, and then in here I can say something like creating CJ Craig. Sure, why not? Alright, CJ. And what we're going to do is we're going to not do that. There we go. That's better. We're going to do useradd, like so. -G for the group. In the groups he's going to be a part of his staff here, comment and then press. So this way he's part of multiple groups, right? And then he's going to be the username. It's going to be CJ Craig. Does that make sense? And it'll automatically give him a home directory and all that stuff. And then we can tell it to tell him that, hey, we're going to be giving a password for Craig. So, oh, all right. That's getting real fancy. I like that. Awesome. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass the password for Craig. That might sound crazy, but no, check it out. So echo, we're going to pass that to the passwd command. The passwd command is the actual password command, and we're going to do standard in, which is the input going into it, and this is going to be for CJ Craig, and that's going to be for that user. So we're going to change the password for CJ Craig to password by using that command right there, which is pretty cool. Alright. And then, yeah, they just let them know, by the way. Yep. Is that making sense? Does anybody need me to break this down a little bit more right here? For that line right there? Echo displays something to the screen normally. So instead of displaying password to the screen, what we're doing is we're redirecting that into the passwd command. So we're saying, hey, this text password, we're going to pass it to, as if it's been typed, basically, to the passwd command, which is what lets you set a password for a user. And then we're going to make it go to the standard in, which is the input of that command. And we're going to say CJ Craig is the user we're going to change the password for. Does that make sense? So that's essentially what's going on with that. So let's just break that down right there. And then let's say, let's create echo again here, and let's create another user, and let's call it Toby. And again, I'm too lazy to type all this out again, so I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to copy and paste it. And I want you guys to be lazy too. Alright, so we're going to come through here, and we're going to do staff, political, press. Oh my gosh, he's got into politics also. I knew that was misspelled. Alright. Political, test. This is going to be Toby. So Toby here is all into the politics. Not Tobu, Toby. Toby's African name is Tobu. I don't know. Just making it up as I go. Alright, Toby. We can give Toby a whole backstory for all we know. Maybe he's part of the CIA or something like that. On a political mission. Now suddenly we've gone from Toby to Spider-Man here, so sure we can add Avengers to our roster too while we're at it. Creating here, and then actually that'd be more fun than Joshua here coming up. But oh, again, I'm too lazy. I don't type this. I don't want to type all this. Just paste that in. Thank you. There we go. So good old Joshua here. Now I'm gonna be too lazy to type Joshua, so I'm gonna copy and paste him also. You can't see? That's fine. It's on a video, so you won't be able to miss it later on, because you'll just be able to go back and watch it. So it'll be all right for that reason right there. I don't know about Winnebago, but we got that. Yeah. Yeah. -G is for groups. We're going to add groups. There's a capital G for it. Let's do one where we can add any person we want, so that way you can add your Spider-Man or whatever. So again, though, I'm too lazy to type this stuff in, so I'm not going to. Oh. Alright, hold on. We'll go up here and copy it. Alright, so let me show you how to make this interactive. If you want. Enter your... Enter the user name. No more Joshua. Ha ha ha. Alright, here's space here. Now, the cool key thing to this is we're going to do a dash n in front of this. And the reason why is if I don't do a dash n, it's not going to keep it on the same line, so it won't do a new line carries return. And by doing this, so that when they type in what they want it to be, it stays on the same line. Otherwise, it'll go to the line underneath right here. So by putting the dash in, it keeps it right here. Well, actually, it'd be smack right there. And so you get space. And that's why I put a space between there, between the colon and the quotes there. Otherwise, when they type it in, they'll be typing like this. You know. Or is it EY? Swatty? I don't know, something like that, right? So you don't want it to be like that, right? You want it to be with a space. So in order to be a space, you want it to be like this, you know? Make sense? So that's why I put that space there. And I want it to be on the same line, so that's what the dash n is all about. Okay. So with that, I'm going to say read here. This lets you read input for a variable, which is cool. So let's just call it something like username. How about that? Does that sound good? Awesome. And then right here, when we have the useradd staff right here, press, not a problem. But will be $username. Make sense? So whatever they enter in becomes the username. And then for the password, it's going to get passed as password, but it's going to be going to $username. $username. And you'll just print out their name right there, whatever they typed. The $sign means we're accessing the contents inside of that variable, so wherever they access it. The actual variable itself, as you can see, is right here. So, you know, but in this case, we're storing a value into that variable, which is whatever they type. Does that make sense? And then when we need to access what it is they typed that's stored inside that variable, we have to put a $sign in front of it. Make sense? Cool. Very, very cool. So let's just run this real quick. So I'm going to save it real fast like this. Bam. Alright, so it's saved. And then now I can run it. So if I come back over here to my terminal, see how it created another desktop? So now I got 3 desktops. Adds them as I need them. Alright, so I'm going to come back over here. Cool. So let me just pop into /home/student/scripts, right? Because that's where I put it. ls, there we are, and check it out. There's my create users. Now I could do a few things. I could say chmod space +x right here, and then I could say create users, and it'll add execute permissions across the gamut right here for this. I could do that. The other thing I could do is just type in sh in front of it and run it that way too. Either way will work. So if I do this, if I say create users .sh, and if I want to assign it just to the actual user and not to group or whatever, and not to everyone, I put a U right there. If I want to do it just for group for execute permissions, I put a G there. Does that make sense? If I don't care and I want to go across the whole gamut, I just do +X and it'll go for user, group, and everyone. Execute permissions, basically. Enter. And there it is, now executable. So I can say create now, and I can run it just like I would a program. See that? And it'll run. Other option, I could run it like a shell script. So I could come in here and say sh like this and run it. And it didn't like something I did. It didn't like the -I option that they're telling me to use in this book here. So, oh, I think they use a -G now for it. It was probably accurate when this book was written, but apparently -I doesn't exist anymore. And it's out flat -I as written here. So, oh, it's no big deal. We'll just change it. Yeah, it's okay. We can fix it like no time at all. Just take seconds. Alright, so basically just come in here. We can just remove this whole thing where let's let it auto increment. I could care less what the number value is on it. But if I wanted to set a number value, I could. I use the -G instead. Gid -D. And that lets you set the ID number there. Because that's what's throwing a fit at. Throwing a fit at me about. Check it out. -G here, or gid, for the new group. And so that's what it was trying to set. And it's not -I, it's actually -G. And they got it wrong on the thing. If you want, I'll prove it. I'll prove it. Hey, why not, right? I could care less. Could really care less. Alrighty. I'm just going to end this whole thing here. Alright. Creating groups. Problem, this one already exists. Fun. Because it already created from www-data. Sorry. Helps if it doesn't already exist, right? Alright, so it's going to run it now. It's going to throw a fit about the other two groups because they already just got created in this previous script when I ran it, which I don't care about then. Alright, see, yeah, so it created it now. It did the group, blah, blah, blah. So now all these groups exist. So it's able to now do what? CJ Craig. I was able to do Toby, right? Change the password for user Toby. And the password for Toby is password. Did Joshua here. And now it's asking me for another username, which we agreed on. Spidey? Or is it Spider-Man? What are we doing here? Spidey's fine. Alright. Spidey. If I put in Spidey, automatically created the user here. And I'll even prove that it's there. I'll prove that it's there. If I come over here, I can say users. Let's go to the user accounts. And check it out. We now have Spidey, CJ Craig, Jetty. We have www-data from before. We have, yeah, Jetty standard here. We have Joshua and Toby. Now we didn't create Jetty, and we didn't create www-data, and we didn't create student. But we did create Spidey, Craig, CJ Craig. We created Joshua and Toby. Does that make sense? So that's how you can script adding users and things of that nature. That's how you can also type them in at the command line. So like we could have typed each one of those at the terminal here if we wanted to, instead of typing them like we did in the shell. But of course you can see the benefit to the shell. We just ran it and it went and did it in nothing flat. Otherwise you're typing that in over and over and over again for each system. It takes a lot longer. So now, and you could even have like a set of shell scripts you create or whatever, and then have a shell script to run those shell scripts. And where you only type one shell script and it just does it all for you. Be extra lazy. It's awesome. Call it efficiency if you like. I like to call it laziness. But any questions, or is this all making sense, kind of, sort of? If it doesn't make sense, you could go back and watch it until it does, type thing. Yeah. But anyways, there's that, and that's basically a good introduction to a bunch of this stuff. And then I also have additional stuff for how to make the screen wider by going in and accessing these tools right here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a CD-ROM right here that you can click on, and this will mount. This will auto mount. Oh yeah, we're talking about the auto mount. If I say connect here, it'll connect to the CD-ROM drive, and it'll auto mount. It'll say open the files here, or I can eject the disk. This is virtual CD-ROM drives. It doesn't really exist, but whatever. Computer doesn't know that. And check it out. It mounted my VMware tools here. And I'm going to show you how to take these VMware tools, how to untar it. Just like I was showing you earlier, how to untar file or whatever. You untar it. You're going to go through. You're going to install the kernel modules, the development source code or whatnot. And then it's going to go through. You're going to run the script inside of here, and it's going to execute. It's going to compile down the kernel modules, and then you're going to install them. And then you're going to reboot the system, and then you're going to be able to full screen it. I made a video on how to do that. It takes about 38 minutes to do it for the video. I explain everything. Alright, But basically, there's that. And I'll close this out. Something else I want to show you. Close that system thing there.
Now, where is it at for us to be able to find and install the programs quickly? Where is it at on?
Oh, for install, actually go over all that. I have a whole video on it. Yeah. It's like 38 minutes long or something like that. But essentially, you say add right here for adding software, and it comes up with that, and it's the add remove program. Yeah. Yeah. So if I type in, oh, well, you're not going to see it because I'm not on the internet, but if I type in kernel right here, yeah, it actually says querying down here, and that's where it's going out trying to find it on the internet. Of course, it's going to be very frustrating because it's not going to be able to find it on the internet because I'm not connected. But if I was connected, it does. And on the video, I am connected to the internet because I did it at home. So you do actually see it go out on the internet, and I'm downloading because I realized I couldn't possibly do it here in a lecture. You have a question? Yeah, but unfortunately, the server stuff doesn't work. Yeah, well, you have to have an NVIDIA card in order to do the 3D, and it probably won't recognize the NVIDIA card through VMware. Yeah, but 15 has a lot of problems with the servers where we go in and tell it system CTL or system control basically. We tell it to turn on stuff or whatever, and it doesn't do it. We tell it to run something and we set it up correctly and all that, and then it doesn't work. Like for NFS, for instance, after you set up and share the folder or whatnot, you go and access the folder and permission denied. Yeah, so I got 17. 17 works great. I haven't had a single problem with it yet. I'm sure I will, but it's minor compared to 15. 15, every daggone server I've tried has not worked on it. 17, every server I've tried so far has worked on it. So I haven't tried them all yet, but I have tried a number of them, and its record is way better than 15, let me tell you. I just can't believe it. I mean, it's just like 15 is a train wreck. But whatever. So now we have all these users. If I come up here into this little corner here, you'll see this little power button, and I can say power off. You do want to power off going between home and school here because it may not mix properly between the virtual machines. So if you're doing that for compatibility problems, it could screw up your virtual machine. Don't do that, please. Please shut it down. Don't just hit the X over here. So yeah. All right.